What's going on, everybody? This is Jacob Shoup. You're watching the Tom O'Brien Show. I hope you all have had a fantastic week and a fantastic day. We got a nice little weekend coming up ahead of us. Whew. Let me say, I am ready for the weekend. As Tom would always say, TGIF, no truer words have maybe ever been spoken on this green earth. We have the SPY trading off about 0.9% at 684. You have the composite off about 1.39% at 19,516. With the Dow Jones Industrial trading off about 0.96% at 44,317. Russell off about 1.24%. These are the futures, of course, at 2,286. And you got the DXY trading up a little bit higher, but not really too much, at 108.01. Crude oil about 0.48 at 70.95. Gold contract up about 0.39% at 2,887, with copper really continuing just to outperform the other metals that we look at here, trading up 2.86%. I believe Southern Copper has their earnings today, and so we'll see if they can catch kind of a bid with that as copper gets a little bit higher. Now, of course, you have silver off about 1.15% at 32.25. Let's see what else we got. Celsius, up about 1.57%, $22.30. Let's see. Anything else happening? Tesla's getting smoked. All's going to plan. Listen, these guys don't have anything left. Okay, they don't. 350 is the next stop. I think this thing hovers around there. We get down to 300 shortly afterwards. We'll talk a little bit about them, but China's, that's decreased. They're not selling in Canada. Trump, I believe, what did he do? He shut off, funding for highway EV chargers. So what is Tesla's next kind of step? Of course, they're going to try to impress everyone with autonomous driving, totally unsupervised autonomous driving. I don't think that will really save them. They still have to sell the vehicles, right? And so, think about this whole thing on the long term, right? If you argue they're a vehicle company still. These guys are doing a very poor job at selling vehicles right now, okay? You get the unsupervised full self-driving. They still have to sell those units because you can't just rent out or license the AI. That takes, again, a long time to run. Musk isn't even sure if unsupervised self-driving will work on some of the computers they have in Teslas now. And so, this whole conversation, them being really a software or an AI company or something like that, having to do with the unsupervised full self-driving, that takes a long time to be able to bake that into the product and then utilize it, right? And so the next push that I really think that they will do is going to be the robots. Of course, some of the headlines that were coming out is they're pushing more hands at one of their factories for Optimus. Excuse me. I think they're not a leader in robotics. Of course, you have Boston Dynamics. You have a bunch of Japanese companies who are doing some really interesting stuff with robotics designed for factories, right? One of the things I have argued about humanoid robots is they're not really, the human body is not evolved to work in a factory, right? There are better ways to kind of do these things. Of course, we've built factories around us. I understand that. But you look at some of the ways that the Japanese try to deal with some problems regarding automation within factories. They use things much more like designed like tentacles. I know that sounds weird, but that's kind of the way they approach it, right? And there's better ways to make something that works better in a factory. So, in my opinion, the Optimus robot is just kind of a hype machine, I don't know who uses those, who will use those. I find it very weird existentially for Musk to do this, meaning he is someone who is very much for growing the population on Earth, but then he's actively trying to create something that would get rid of jobs, especially kind of low skill, low barrier to entry jobs. It doesn't really make much sense to me. And seriously, take some time this week and look through the ways that people are trying to automate things going on in factories. It's very interesting, but it's certainly not, an anthro approach to the whole situation. So they'll try to push Optimus. I'm sure that will get some hype, but here's what you got going on is that the entire market is, in my opinion, afraid of illiquidity with the potential for trade wars, right? And so, again, you saw that when the tariffs were being threatened or, right near application, that you had, of course, cryptocurrency blew up. I think that proves, at least the way that the market interacts with cryptocurrency now, is that it is a risk asset and it is supplementary to the rest of the market, meaning that once people believe the market is probably a little bit oversaturated, they pump into Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So you saw that fear occur and people just wanted to get money. Now, over the long term, if these tariff threats kind of stop, I believe a lot of capital goes into the US as other countries are kind of struggling a little bit. So we'll see what happens with that on the macro scale, but Tesla, I don't think, has a reason to even be at this level, right? I mean, we were calling this, earlier this week, right? I mean, we're in the mid 400s, 400, let's just take the high here, about 420, and we're now down at 362. It's like, that's a huge movement to the downside. And I don't believe they have any kind of ramp going forward. In fact, I think things get harder for them. Now, as I've said in the past, this is not part of my short thesis on Tesla, but it is something to keep in mind, is that what he's doing right now is somewhat controversial among everyone, I would suppose, right? So he runs a big risk profile that way. If, let's say, some coalition in our government decides, hey, what you're doing right now by seizing treasury payments, even though they're saying it's only read permissions, which is whatever, everything he's doing, he gets a lot of heat on him. And if they find anything that he's done wrong and they're able to convince enough people, I mean, he can get embroiled, in any number of legal issues. Again, I wouldn't really weigh that into my short thesis on Tesla. I think that's enough saying their business is in trouble just at these valuations. But it is something to keep in mind, And if for whatever reason he bumps heads with Trump at some point, then you're really in for a world of hurt, right? And that's what you got to keep in mind with people, who have relatively larger egos, is they can really end up butting heads in a major way. That's all just human management, right? So something to keep in mind. Fundamentally speaking, though, the company, I think, has problems at this valuation. So stay right there, folks. We'll be right back. We'll talk about a few things today.
If you spend any